Hi everyone, I'm Hannah. I'm going to talk about the evolution of love and sexuality in games. So I have to give you a fair warning, there is some mildly explicit content in this conversation, so hide the kids, please. Also, I am going to give you information. This is purely a factual presentation. I'm not going to state any opinions or provide any viewpoints for any person. Also, please try to keep an open mind. I mean, this is a subject that for some people is a bit itchy, so just keep it in mind, don't worry about it. Also, I'm not going to talk about sexism, I'm going to talk about sexuality. Is there any confusion about the difference between the two? No? Okay, let's get to it. The first period I'm going to talk about is 1976 till 1987. In this period, there is a thing called the Smoochie Victory. This was the first ever depiction of this is the first ever depiction of romance in games, and in this case the first ever game that showed this was a game called Sheriff in 1979, sorry. And this game was made by Nintendo, and basically you, as the guy, you shoot these bunch of guys, and if you win you get a Smoochie Victory from the girl. A very famous example of this is Donkey Kong. And Donkey Kong came out in 1981. And of course this was the birth of the series we all know and love, Mario. And of course Mario always gets his Smoochie Victory from Peach, and that series is still going on right now, and it's a very current theme. So, there's also this thing called mud sex, and I see you guys wondering what the hell is mud. So, mud is a multiple user dungeon. And this thing is a sort of a text-based adventure where several players can play together in this kind of text-based adventure. They can chat with each other. Basically, it was the predecessor of sexting. Anyway, so a good example is Colossal Cave Adventure, which came out in 1976, and this game was actually made on a university computer, then rediscovered a year later and actually made into the game it is nowadays. This is also the very first mud game that was ever released. So this is an example of how a mud game would look like several different colors of text would indicate different kind of events happening, and for example the user had to type commands for something to happen, for example north if they wanted to go north. So, the very first game about sex, it was called Soft Porn Adventure, and it came out in 1959. Well, you can kind of guess what it's about, right? It's basically interactive porn. Also, it was text-based. I guess it works. Well, anyway. So, there was another game that came out a year later, and this was Nightlife in 1982. This is actually a Japanese game, and it was the first Aerogay game that I could find. I will explain Aerogay a bit later. And this was the first visual game you could find. I mean, they were creative, right? So, there's also this game called Leisure Shoot Larry in the Land of the Lost Lizards, which came out in 1987. This is quite a famous game in its own genre. And it's actually remakes have been made till actually last year, and the game came out. So, the first homosexual character that was ever depicted in game history was in a game called Moon Mist in 1986. And this character it's also, by the way, Moon Mist is a text-based adventure, and it has several random plot lines. And one of these plot lines featured a female artist, which was jealous because her girlfriend married a man. So, second period, 1988 to 1999. I'm going to give you guys a little quiz about cross-dressing. Anyone doesn't know what cross-dressing is? Okay, we can skip this. So I'm going to give you a small image of a character, and you guys have to put up your hands and then say which character and which game. First one.
Birdie from Mario.
Yes, Birdo from Super Mario Bros. 2 in 1988. This was actually the first cross-dressing character that was ever created in the games industry. So, quite nice, Super Mario. Alright, next. Flea from? Yes, there you go. Chrono Trigger, 1995. Yeah, you guys need to know this one.
Cloud from Final Fantasy VII.
There you go, Cloud Strike from Final Fantasy VII, 1997. Next.
Or Zelda.
Or Zelda, yes. Zelda Chic in. Anyone know which game?
The Legend of Zelda.
Ocarina of Time.
Of course. Yes, Ocarina of Time. There we go. 1998. Okay, this one. Any takers? This is Alfred Ashford in Resident Evil Code Veronica 2000. This is actually the guy. This is the guy. Yeah. Also, for the hardcore gamers out there.
Dark Souls. Dark Souls.
Yeah, which character?
Dark Souls Gwendolyn.
Yes, Gwendolyn from Dark Souls in 2011. Alright, quite well, right? Yes, that's the guy. That's the guy. Alright, so, eroge. I mentioned it before. Eroge is basically what you guys know as hentai. And hentai was kind of a rising star somewhere around the 80s, especially in magazines, manga, and anime. But games was kind of a thing that rose a little later. The first good example that I could find was Dokusai, which was released in 1992. And this game was actually the game that focused a bit more on romance instead of the actual porn stuff that the previous games did. Also very famous examples are Too Hard, which was released in 1997, and Kanon, which was released in 1999. And these two were very, very innovating for their kind, because they actually focus more on story than the actual erotica part. Also, the Too Hard soundtrack is still being played on karaoke machines throughout Japan. It's first of its kind. So, there's also different kinds of eroge, just not the heterosexual kind. There's also yaoi, which is basically boys' love marketed towards girls. And there is bara, which is boys' love marketed towards homosexual men, so a bit more mature. And there is, of course, yuri, which is girls' love. And for yaoi, I found one good example, Tsukishio, which was released in 1999. And the other two genres are so underground, especially not the mangas or animes, they're quite right there, but the games, they're very hard to find. So I'm sad to say we couldn't really find any good examples for those. Anyway, we all know this character, right? Kind of do. Lara Croft. So Lara Croft was first appeared in Tomb Raider in 1996. Also, Lara Croft was mostly seen as the industry's biggest sex symbol. And several people said that, and several people still think this is one of the leading sex symbols nowadays. Also, the very first nude mod that I could find was for Lara Croft. So, third and last period, 2000 till now. There is this series called GTA. I'm sure you all know it, and I'm going to start talking about the series from GTA 3 and on. And in this game, there is a thing called prostitution, and in which you can just go get into a car, pick up a whore, have sex, and actually regain health. You can regain health. They use it as a mechanic. Same happens in San Andreas, where you can actually have girlfriends, and these girlfriends give the player certain benefits. For example, one repairs your car for free, the other gives you a gimp suit, and some other gives you some kind of a weapon. It's a strange thing, but it's fun, I think. Anyway, there's also this thing called hot coffee, and this kind of caused a stir when it was released. It's called a mod, but it's not really, because it was actually, it unlocked parts of the code in the game that was already there, which is basically when the main character of the game had a successful date with one of his girlfriends, and he was invited over for coffee. So this mini game was triggered because of the mod, and basically you see two low poly characters driving each other with clothes on. I guess that was cool or something. I don't know. You bought some bash and it's done. Let's see. And also there is this thing called The Ballad of Gay Tony, which came out in 2009, and this game was a sort of an expansion towards the GTA 4 game. And this is one of the only GTA games that depict a gay man, which is sort of okay, like not bashed or anything. And you play as bodyguard, so it's pretty nice. Also The Sims. The Sims started in 2000, the first game. And in the first game, heterosexual marriage was possible, same-sex marriage was not. But in the second game, and in the third and the fourth, it is possible to have same-sex couples. Also, Sims have kind of preferences, as in the first game, nobody really prefers any gender. But in the second game, when Nightlife came out, it actually had turn-ons and turn-offs, which the player could decide for their sim. And this kind of decided somewhat what gender they preferred. Also, there's this thing called censoring, where they just strategically place blankets and make the hot tub turn up and all that, so you don't really see anything. Also, the blurry dots when you go to the toilet, but you still see the clothes underneath. I don't know. So, JRPGs, or just RPGs, there's loads to talk about, but I picked a few series out of there, and Final Fantasy is one of them. It started in 1987, and it's still going on strong. This series is big on the romance. Mostly heterosexual romance, some implied subtexty same-sex romance, but you don't really find it outside of inside of the game. But outside, plenty of fanfiction, believe me. Alright. So there's also this game, Vampires: The Masquerade Bloodlines. Cue for installing the game right now, because it is awesome. Also, this is a game that goes into a bit more darker, unexplored area of sexual orientation. Mostly some sex clubs, and also a little bit towards BDSM actually. Fable, which was originally released in 2004, is a series that's really cool, and it actually has a certain mechanic that is a bit different than most games. You actually you can go up to an NPC and you can press a button, and then you get a description of that NPC actually stating their sexual preference. This would be really, really cool in real life. Anyway. Also, you can dress up like that. I mean, why wouldn't you want to play that? So, we all know this one, right? The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim. Just put on this amulet and anyone will love you. Anyone. Yeah. Last but not least, BioWare, one of the leading companies in romance in the Western society, and basically every game that they made has awesome romances, heterosexual, same-sex, it doesn't matter. They have it, even the older ones. Really, they're really cool games. I just wanted to highlight Mass Effect, which started in 2007 and is still going on. And this game, it caused quite a stir, especially when Fox News got wind of that you could have sex with aliens. Aliens. Anyway. But that's not all. It's not all sunshine and roses, because there are also games that kind of draw the line between funny and offensive, and one of them is the Ultimate Gay Fighter. It's a matter of preference, but you know, they kind of pick any stereotype that you can think of LGBTQ characters, and it's there. And it could be funny, it could also be offensive. It's a matter of personal taste. I recommend you just look it up and decide for yourself. So, what might be next? An LGBTQ main character in a game that is not an RPG, maybe? Maybe. But this gun, please. This gun. But think about it. If there was actually a Call of Duty game where the main character was gay, would it make a difference? Really, think about it. If you want to discuss these kind of topics with other people that are as open-minded as you, please go on Facebook and join the I Get Gay Straight Alliance, and we'll welcome you with open arms. And thank you, that was my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it.
Your small token for this evening. Thank you very much for this talk. There should be about 45 minutes left in this evening.